Hello everyone. This video is going to be about how to insert rungs and use ladder logic instructions such as XICs, OTEs, and timers. So we're going to use some timers in this video. So we're going to add on to the last video. So we're going to start over with a new rung. And I'm going to add an XIC. And I want to do a 3-wire latch is what I want to do first. And that's normally what we're going to do in class for most things to get the operation started. So I'm going to put an XIO here. I'm going to bring our branch down so I can branch around this XIC. Bring in another XIC. I'm going to bring in an OTE. And I'm going to go ahead and set them up the ways we were. So we're going to make tags. So we're going to right click on the question mark, select new tag. I'm going to make, this one is going to be start PB. It's a bool data type in controller scope. Create. This is going to be another new tag, stop PB. It's a bool data type because the instruction only accepts bool as the data type. Controller scoped, hit create. This one here is going to be, we're going to click on the question mark, right click, new tag. We're going to call this right here, this is going to be called sequence latch. So to start a sequence, this right here is how we're going to latch it to be on. And this is also an OTE, so that's a bool data type. Controller scoped, we're going to hit create. We're going to select the sequence latch tag and we're going to drag it down to here, and so that turns green. So this will, when we hit the start button, as long as the stop button is not pushed, then we'll go into sequence latch. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and bring in another rung. I want to bring an XIC in, so that what I want to do is that whenever the sequence is latched, I want to have that as the condition. And then what I want to do is, this is new for us, so if we don't have our favorites set up at this time, we'll go to the tab called timer counter. We're going to use a TON, which is a timer on delay. So we're going to click and drag. And we first have to give our timer a name. So here beside where it says timer, it's got the question mark. It's just like up here a sequence latch. You have to have a tag associated with this instruction. So this entire thing is an instruction that has several pieces to it. So the first thing we have to do is give the timer a name. So I'm just going to right click on the question mark like we did in the others. I want to hit new tag. And this, you don't have to do this, but I recommend if you don't know how to follow your tags around, I normally would start any timer with the word timer at the beginning of it. So for now, we're just going to say timer 1. And this is, the timers have their own data type. So a timer will have the data type of timer, and we're going to be in controller scope. So we have a name, we have a data type, and we're in controller scope. So we're going to select create. And one way to know is that if you don't have a tag or a tag that is valid, you will not get any values here in the preset and accumulator. So let me just go back out and take that out. If you don't have a valid tag, it will not come up with zeros there, because currently there's no preset or no accumulator. I do want to show you that in here, underneath a timer 1 tag, like I said, there's several parts to a timer. There is the .PRE, which is a preset, an ACC, which is accumulator value, an enable bit, a timer timing bit, and a timer done bit. As you can see, that's underneath the timer. So when we make that timer tag, it will automatically make these things for us, automatically, because of the type of instruction it is. So whatever you name it, it's going to put that at the front of that .pre, .acc, .en, .tt, .dn. Those are already there, and it just puts whatever your name is in front of that dot. And as you can see over to the right hand side, the timer itself is got a timer data type. The preset is a dent because it is a numerical value that does not have decimals. The ACC is a numerical value, that's why it's called a dent, which is short for double integer. And it does not have a decimal. But the enable bit can only have a 0 or a 1 because it's a bool. The timer timing can only have a 0 or a 1. And the done bit can only be 0 or 1. Okay, so you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a moment. So what I would suggest is that you go ahead and put in just a few seconds, like 5 seconds or so, to get started, just so that you can see the changes when they make. And also, you cannot put in, when you say 5 seconds, you can't put in just the number 5, because these timers are on a millisecond time base. So that means in order to have 5 seconds, you have to times everything by 1,000. So if you want 10 seconds, it would be 10,000. So we actually have to put 5,000 in here because it's always in milliseconds for these timers. Now what we want to do is we want to say after, so once we hit the start button, and this is just to make sure that you understand, the stop button cannot be pressed. So as long as the stop button is not pressed and you hit the start button, we're going to turn this sequence latch on. It's going to stay latched after the start button is pressed. That is also going to turn this tag on, which is going to start this timer. So we're going to put in another rung. I'm going to go back to the bit tab and select an XIC. And I want to say that once this timer 1 is done, then I want to turn on pilot light 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this tag here and bring it down to here. But I want you to know that that ain't the whole tag name. So remember, when I say that the timer has to be done, well, guess what? There is a done bit that is a 0 or 1. Because remember, the timer _1, the timer _1 itself has got a timer data type. Well, guess what? That XIC cannot accept a timer data type. So you have to go down to this XIC has to have a 0 or 1. So you can either say if the timer is enabled, which means that it's counting. Timer timing means that it's counting. And also the timer done. Okay, so we said the timer done. So we're going to select that timer 1 done. And that's very important. If you ever have, when you try to download a file or try to accept a file or finalize changes that you made and you didn't go down to the bit level, it will not allow that download or finalization to take place. So we said that when timer 1 is done, which is why it's got that suffix on it, .dn, then we want our pilot light to come on. So we're going to say new tag pilot light 1, and because that's an OTE, that can only accept a bool data type, controller scoped, and we're going to hit create. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this in and we're going to test. So let me say communications, who active, make sure that my controller is highlighted, and remember, if it is not, then you will go to here, and in class we'll have an AB underscore, I think it's a ETHIP underscore 1 or -1. So, but either way, this is the driver I'm using. In class it'll be an Ethernet driver. So I would just expand and then select my controller and click download. You'll do the same thing, except you'll use a different driver and your controller will be a 1769-L24ER series controller. We'll let this get done downloading and finalizing and make sure we don't have no errors. If there's any errors, it will pop up an area here to the bottom of your logic window that will tell you where what the error is, and it should kind of pinpoint where it's at, so it's easier to find. So anyways, it went through with no issues. I'm online with it now. Power rails are green, showing that I'm executing logic. So now if I press this start PB, which I have to right click and hit toggle, now you're going to see that I'm counting, and see here the EN, that means it's enabled. Timer 1 goes done, pilot light 1 comes on. Okay, so I'm going to toggle that back off. I'm going to open my stop, and once I take, let's just say the power, because remember this, you can look at this as like it's a wiring schematic. Once this contact here opens, then there's no power on this instruction anymore, so it will automatically go back down to 0 as accumulated, and it's ready for the next one. So as you can see, as soon as this instruction here goes true or closes, we're enabled. So that's the difference between the enable and the timer timing. So I want to see if I can show you that. Because if you'll look in the controller tags under timer, see the .en is enabled. So that means that if that rung is true, then it's going to be enabled. Timer timing is only the time while it's counting. And then the .done is when it's done counting. Okay, so there is a difference between being enabled and when timer timing. Hit Control Tab and go back. So now let's just say that I want to, after 5 seconds, I want the light to come on. But let's just say after 5 more seconds, I want it to go off. Okay, so there's a couple things we can do to make that happen. So let's go ahead and add another rung. And I'm going to say that we can do this 2 different ways. We can say that once the pilot light is on, we can start another timer, or when timer 1 done is on, we can start another timer, because either one is going to give us the same exact result. So let's go back to an XIC. Now let's just say that when pilot light 1 is on, and let's go to timer counter and get us a TON. And we're going to go ahead and right click and select new tag, and we're going to say this right here is timer 2. It's a timer data type, controller scope, hit create. We're going to set our preset for 5 seconds. And then what we want to do there is we could do a reset of this timer, but if we don't stop this, and it all depends on what you want it to do. If you want it to just come on and go back off after 5 seconds and stay off, to where you'd have to hit the start button again, which is what I'm looking for, then we would have to break this latch up here. So what we would do there is this right here would do its thing, and I'm going to come back up to here, and I'm going to put in another bit, normally closed, and I'm going to say if timer 2, when timer 2 is done, I want to open that. Okay, so let's go ahead and accept that, and let's just see if that works. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the start button, toggle. Oh, I forgot to reset the stop button. See, the stop button wasn't made. See, I pressed it earlier. In class, you shouldn't have that problem because we actually have the momentary buttons that will, when you let go of them, will go back to their normal state. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and latch, and you should see that that's going to, even though I let the start button go off, it's still counting. Pilot light comes on, the pilot light should go off, and the sequence is reset. So I just want you to see how easy that is, and it all depends on exactly what you want to have happen. If you wanted to turn several more lights on, then you would do this, just repeat the sequence that you see here from pilot light 1 to pilot, to timer 2, and so on and so forth. And you can create as many timers as you need. It's not infinite, but there's more timers than what we'll ever use in anything that we do. And also, just keep this in mind, is that you would only use one timer or a timer in every rung if you wanted each light or each result to be able to be adjustable to some extent. So that's where sometimes you don't even require, and you'll see this in later labs, where we can use 1 or 2 timers to sequence through a chain of events. So anyways, the whole purpose of this was just to show you that here's a 3-wire latch, just like what we've been doing. Here is a timer. We're going to wait 5 seconds before we turn something on, and we're going to, after it comes on, we're going to wait a certain amount of time, which here we got 5 seconds before it turns back off. The other thing is that if you wanted to update the time, you can just see I'm online right now. You can just double click in there and we can go to 10 seconds. So you don't have to download or do an online edit or anything like that to change the time in the preset. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If not, just let me know and I will walk you through some additional training videos. All right, thank you.